Okay, no, it's fine. It's good that you have tried. We'll help each other. Maybe others know what you are not able to answer.
Mm.
Okay, let's start off with tutorial 1 with question 1. Basically asking about it's saying as an expert in project management, what is a project, what is management, and what is project management. And then after that, it also asks for the viewpoints of management, and then to differentiate between a project manager and a project leader. So the way we're gonna do this, we'll all be participating. I'll be asking.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I'll be asking you guys also. Then you can all assist each other. We work as a team.
Mm.
Okay. So what do you think?
For me, I think a project is a series of planned tasks that need to be completed in order to reach a specific outcome.
Yes, that is correct. Any other contributions?
Mm.
Melvin?
I'm trying to get that because I didn't really look through the tutorial. I'm just seeing the email right now, so I'm trying to get the tutorial so I can just contribute to the.
Okay.
Okay. So basically what I have for projects is a project is any planned temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or other complete indefinite outcome, which is a deliverable, within a limited time scale and with limited resources, such as a limited budget. Yeah.
Yes, yes. That's a complete definition. That's a very good definition. I think it's mixed up with the PMBOK definition or something.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's good. In terms of the project itself, I'm sure all of us have been involved in some projects, whether it's a personal project or some project at work or even at school. Okay, so, okay, in management?
Okay. From my view of point, I think management is the process administrating and controlling the affairs of the organization. It's based on controlling and organizing the organization.
Yes, controlling and organizing, yes. Those are the functions. As long as you are able to incorporate the functions of management, that is controlling, organizing, leading, directing, all that. Yeah, that should be more like it. So in terms of project management now, since you said a project is basically an endeavor that you undertake to come up with a unique product or service. So now what you are going to do when you're managing a project is that you are applying now those management functions onto a project. So what you are doing is you are applying planning, you are applying directing, you are applying organizing onto a project. So you can give us a unique deliverable.
Thanks.
Okay. I think they also asked for the viewpoints of management. I think it's just in your notes also. The notes that you're given by Prof. Harmony, lesson 1A.
Yeah.
You should be able to find it there. I think that should be very easy to find also, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We can move on to the second question. Okay, the second question is about
I didn't talk about the difference. Can
Yes,
you
yes.
discuss about the difference between a project manager and a project leader?
Okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, that last part. Okay, so we always hear about the manager and the leader. So what is the difference? I want to hear from one of you. Wilfred? Wilfred? Is Wilfred with us? Okay. Okay. Malvin wanted to try, I think.
I think the manager is the one that's carrying out. I think the manager is the leader also in the project. That's what I think. I don't know whether I'm right, but I think they are somehow related. The project and the lead, the manager and the leader. So yeah,
So
this one is a tricky one.
Yeah.
So
What
can I
I
add on
said,
something?
Okay, okay. Let me give a chance to Doreen.
okay, so basically what I said is that the manager is in charge of the overall responsibility of completing the project, whereas the leader is, how should I say, in charge of the success and the vision behind the project. So I would say that the leader is more a visionary than as compared to the managers who is more a coordinator, basically.
That's good try. That's good. Okay. Anyone else? Any other new ideas?
I would say project manager is the one controlling the projects, is focused on the projects, and the leader is overall success and vision of a project. So looking onto the success and the vision of the project, while the project management is the one controlling the whole project and coordinating.
Yes, yes. That's good also. Okay. So so at the end of the day, the project manager is the one responsible for the overall results. He will be the one who will be held accountable for the project. But a leader, on the other hand, a leader can actually be anyone. You know,
Mm.
anyone can be a leader. Even those at the very bottom can be a leader also. A manager can also be a leader. The project manager can also be the leader sometimes. Basically, the leader has some leadership is basically has something to do with having an influence on the people, being able to motivate the people to achieve or to work, or so you can achieve the objective of the project. So that one, anyone can do it. So even amongst yourself, let's say you are given a project by the university, let's say from the HOD, for example, amongst you, there will be some of you who are trying to convince others, trying to motivate others so that they can get in such a way that they will end up achieving the objectives of the project. So like that, you are acting as a leader. And sometimes again, your senior or your, let's say the manager, sometimes a manager can also come to the ground to you guys and try to convince you, trying to motivate you. So like that, he's also acting as a leader during that specific moment. But a manager may not necessarily be a leader always.
Mm.
So is that perhaps is there anyone that want to add on maybe? Okay, can we move on to the next one?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the next question is about the construction of the Sydney Opera House. Okay, let me just read through quickly. So what happened is that the construction of the Sydney Opera House was estimated to cost $7 million. However, it ended up costing $102 million. In addition to that, its construction was estimated to take 4 years, but it ended up being completed after 14 years. Nonetheless, the Sydney Opera House is regarded as a true masterpiece with a great architectural work of the 20th century, and it represents multiple strands of creativity, both in architectural form and structural design. It's a great urban sculpture, carefully set up with a remarkable waterscape, and it's a world-famous iconic building. So it's a very nice building if you were to see it. If you can Google it and check it out, and it attracts a lot of people there. But now we want to check it out. We want to analyze it in terms of from a project management viewpoint. So the question coming as follows: from a project management perspective, would the construction of the Sydney Opera House be considered a successful project? Justify your answer. So I want to hear your viewpoints. I hope you are following on the PDFs that I've sent to you.
I don't think so, sir.
Okay, so you don't think it's a successful project?
No.
Okay, no, that's good. So what makes you say so?
Because, sir, like we all know that a project has to, in order for it to be successful, it must meet those three triple constraints, which are the cost, the time, and the scope. But then if you can see already the cost has not been met because they went way beyond their budget, and the time, they took longer than they anticipated, but the scope was achieved because it ended up being like a world famous iconic building. So in terms of the time and the cost, I don't think it was a successful project. Yeah, it's just my opinion.
What?
What? What do you mean what?
Okay, no, it's fine. It's good. That's your opinion. It's good. I think it's good. It's good to always give your viewpoint. What do others think? Who was saying what? Any other idea?
Can I also say something, Prof? Or say whether?
Yes, yes.
What I think is, I don't know if it really makes sense, but I think that the project is always subjected to change with time. Can I then reason saying that it was from a project management perspective, it sort of it can be considered successful? Can I reason in that regard, saying that with time the project is always subjected to change, and can that be regarded as a success?
Okay. Okay, so what you're saying is the project, there will be change on the project, and as long as you end up completing it, it will still be successful. Or what do you mean?
I'm just trying to come from that perspective. Will that make sense if I have to reason like that?
Oh, okay, okay. Because at the
I
beginning.
think.
Okay, Dorian.
Oh, okay, I think I understand what Joey is saying, but then I think one has to consider there has to be like a certain degree of change that is allowed in order for the project to be still considered a success. And then considering that, can we consider whether this project was actually a success or not?
Okay, any other ideas? Thomas? Okay.
What Christine said.
Yes, what did Christine say?
Said that a project is governed by the triple constraints, and they have to be met for a project to be considered successful. Even though the project was done at the end, the time constraint was too much of a there's too much of a difference between what they set out and what they accomplished, and by the time they accomplished.
Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, I also agree with you guys. Those constraints, especially in this case, in terms of time and the cost, yeah, those constraints need to be met. Although sometimes there will be change in the project. First, before you start with the project itself, you need to agree on the scope of the project. That goes on with the sometimes what you call the quadruple constraints. Sometimes on top of cost and time, there is also quality, and then there is also scope. So
Yes.
if you have to change to add more things to the project, that's called scope creeping, scope creep. So you end up.
But then, sir,
yes.
Like going back to what Dorian said now, like, and combining that with what Joe said. Joe said that any project is subject to change, which is true.
Yeah.
Like some things you can't control and whatever. Say your materials, you have to import them and there's delays or whatever.
Yeah.
So in that case, going back to Dorian's point, what degree of change would be acceptable for the project to still be considered successful, even though the constraints are not met?
Okay, that's a tricky one. Because if you check, let's say in terms of cost, even the time, they assume that according to the plan, they were saying that it will take 4 years, but it ended up taking 14 years. That's just way too much. That's more than
difference.
If you check the percentage there, it will be way too much. Even $7 million, and then it ended up becoming
102.
102. Yo, that's again just way too much. If it's, let's say, 5% change or 10%, maybe it's acceptable. But in terms of the planning itself, perhaps something went wrong there, which made the project to fail also.
Okay, sir.
Sir?
Yes.
Can I then say, for us to determine whether the project was successful, we sort of now in that consider as a 5% factor now to sort of give us direction, or rather comparison between what was initially projected, or that in terms of time, for instance, and what we had in the end. And I then say that to consider now the success of the project.
Yeah, you can say, okay, maybe let's say 5%. Yeah, 5% is still fine, I think. But it will also depend on the organization and all the planning also. Because the more that percentage becomes, it means you end up doing completely something different than what was planned initially.
Sir, to add on to that, I think also to answer Joe, every project or every business should have like contingency plans in place, so that in case things don't go according to plan, then they are still within, their vision or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, they're planning.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think even the part B, we have answered it in terms of the quadruple constraints also.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other question perhaps that you guys
No, I don't have anything. I don't have anything to say much. I think all the ideas was proper defined. The one from Christine. For me, the one for Christine is the perfect one, because for a project to be successful, you should meet the 3 constraints: the cost, the time, and the scope. So for me, the one for Christine is the perfect one.
Yes, yes.
The answer, I think.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Is there any other specific question that you perhaps want us to tackle on this first tutorial?
Okay, I have a question, sir.
Yes.
But what? Okay, we're of construction, but why this change came, like the price and the relation? What really bring this into change?
What is it?
What really bring this into change? Like you see the duration, supposed to be 4 years, but you want to 14 years, and then also supposed to be 70 million, you want 100 million. Why? What product change?
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Anyone?
Can Seth, may you please rephrase the question?
No,
Soil.
the question is, the question is,
Scope
on the
creep.
scope, they say 4 years.
Mm.
At the end, we end up with 14 years. No more 4 years, but 4. So 10 years more extra.
Mm.
And then on the price, it was 7 million. We end up using now 100 million. So 90 something million extra. So what product changed? Was the material was too expensive or the material out of order now?
The material became expensive over the time.
I think the people started chopping the money.
What I actually think is one has to, when looking at those differences, like you mentioned earlier, sir, you actually have to consider the creeps as well. So it's basically lack of planning, lack of thorough planning, and not thoroughly laying out the scope, weak leadership, and not keeping the team together. You know, and it basically not everything was considered the first time around. And that's basically, as we can see with regarding to the time change and the change of the cost of the entire thing, I think there were a lot of details that were not considered in. There was probably a lot of change along the process.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, that's a good one. Thank you, Dorian.
Thank you.
Okay, let's have a look at another question. Okay, we can skip to question 7. Question 7, the one about Scorpion Zinc.
Okay.
Okay, it's saying that Scorpion Zinc management decided to convert Namzinc refinery so that the roaster plant is incorporated within the existing flow sheet. In this case, you have been shortlisted as a project manager for a project manager position. And in the interview, you were asked the following question: what is the role of the project manager and what skills they need? What do you think? Let's start with Wilfred.
Internet problem, sir.
There?
Right.
Internet problem.
Yes, sir, internet problem.
Oh. Okay. Who else can perhaps try to answer that one? You see, when you go for when you guys are done with your engineering degree, you'll be going for interviews. Such questions you'll be asking those interviews. Actually, there will be more tougher questions than that one.
I want to try.
Okay, Enoch.
Sir, can I try something?
Yes, yes. What is it?
I think the role of a project manager is responsible for negotiating with functional manager for resources to be assigned to the project and then integrate work done in different functional disciplines.
Yes, that's correct. That's part of the answer.
Okay, I have a few. Basically, what I said was the project manager's roles and responsibilities are that they should be able to manage and resolve issues as they arise and identify possible risks and create plans if they occur. So mention that they need to be able to report and document progress, to communicate progress, to communicate with the team and the key stakeholders, also whilst providing quality assurance tests on the end product.
That's another good one. Alvin,
Yes, sir.
what do you think?
I think as a manager, you should be able to do research on this this assignment you were given, and then to see whether there was such an initiative before, and from that you can now start. You have to have the skills to look for information about the idea, possible information that you can get on the idea, and then from that you can see how you can go about. That's what I think. But you also have, as a manager, you also have to have the leadership skills.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, yeah, leadership skills for you to assign different tasks to the people that you think that will be working around you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rob,
Alex?
yes, sir. Can I also just maybe add?
Yes, yes, you may.
In my view, as a project manager, okay, the first and foremost thing that we'll probably have to do is consider the visibility of this. If it's viable, then that doesn't necessarily mean it's a go ahead. Then you have to probably look in terms of the safety of how you're gonna run this whole thing. I mean, seeing that it's gonna be converted into a non-zinc refinery. And then from that now you then consider the economics of the extension of the mine itself. So if it's viable and if it can be conducted in a safe environment that doesn't jeopardize the health of the people or the workers that will be working on site, and if it meets the economics of the business, then I think it should sort of be a go ahead. Also, in terms of now skills, we will probably have to consider the production managers and all procurement managers and all sort of engineers that are sort of like needed. That also speaks to HR and accountants and all that stuff. So that's my take on it.
Yes. Actually, that's good. It's like, that's more of a systems view. Should be able to integrate to see how that project fits into the entire business. So you need to have a good idea of how the entire, not just the refinery, but the entire mine, or how all the departments come together and function as one. Is there any additions?
Maybe you also have to like look at your stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders, and how they will be involved in the project.
Yes.
So you can, yeah.
Okay. Yes, that's good. I think that's well answered. Yeah, I think there are also other things like communication. You need to be able to communicate, because in this case, if there will be someone interviewing you for that position, I think it will most likely be some other managers at high level. That should be the general manager, maybe the, let's say, the production managers, or maybe there's some other strategic projects manager or capital project manager, that level. So they will need you to have a good understanding, not just metallurgy alone, but you also need to have just some background understanding of let's say, electrical, mechanical, instrumentation, even the business, even understanding business itself, procurement, all those things. Yeah, I think that question is well answered. We can move on to the next question, I think. Okay, the next question. Okay, the next one will be, I think in your answers, most of you even talked of characteristics also of a project manager. Some of you, I heard you talking about even leadership, even in terms of the systems view, where you are interacting with other departments and like production managers and all the other managers and engineers. Okay. Okay. How will you, as a project manager now, how will you ensure that this question we are dealing with this one? How will the project manager ensure that the roster plan specialists and consultants will deliver exactly what is required? Because in a project like this one for refinery conversion, you will have you're gonna work with specialists who will be working with a company which specializes in roaster plants. So they will come with their engineers. So how do you ensure that they deliver exactly what is required?
So I think that's where effective communication comes into play, because you need to be able to clearly from the jump, like, specify what your expectations are, and then they, also tell you what the expectations are, and then from there you find a middle ground that will ensure that your project is not jeopardized in any way. And also just regular monitoring, regular communication. Yeah, I think that's what
I
will work.
also, yeah, I agree with Christine, but I also think that collaboration is important, because I think many times people like lack that. And this basically just generates, like, creative solutions and getting membership support and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also want to add, I think that's where you can also do a feasibility study on the operational, where you can see whether the results produced by this project can satisfy the organization or the plant itself. So during the feasibility study, you can already see whether you will be able to get the results that you want when you consider operational sector of the feasibility study.
Yes, that's correct. Any other additions, Thomas?
All was said, sir.
All was said. Okay, maybe just in addition to that, we also need to, when those consultants come in, you need to draw up something like a plan with them. Basically, what you need to give them is something like it's like you need to give them KPIs, so that they'll know exactly what needs to be delivered. And from that, you also need they from their side, once you give them like a plan that we need to achieve this and this and this, they need to give you from their side, let's say by when they will achieve all the objectives. And with that, you should be able to track them also. This is more in terms of also control, monitoring
So
and
it's
control.
like sort of a brief, so that we both know what to expect.
Yes. So both you and the specialist need to come to sit, and you need to come to an agreement of what needs to be delivered. And then they, on their side, they will come up with a plan that fits so that they can achieve those objectives. And then later at the end, when they say no, we are done. Let's say if it's let's say construction of the roaster plant, if they say they are done, then you can go and assess what they have done, if it's according to the specifications that you gave them. Yeah, nonetheless, I think everything you guys have said is also good. It's just in addition to that. Can we move on to the next question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this one. Okay, let's check question 9. Okay, question 9 is all about the Walvis Bay port. Okay, so what is happening is that the Namibian government has approved the expansion of the Walvis Bay port to boost Namibia's economic transformation. While working on this project, the project engineers observed that they are running out of time due to poor planning. So the project manager then decided to skip the monitoring and controlling phase of the project, claiming that they have the most competent and experienced working staff on the port expansion project, and they do not need this phase of the project. It's just a waste of time. So, what do you think? What is the significance of the monitoring and controlling phase?
So basically, the monitoring and controlling phase compares the actual and planned performance of a project. With this information, it is possible to change requests such as correct and preventative actions as well as defective repairs. Also, this helps to update the project management plan and the project document.
Yes, that's correct. Anyone to add on? Florian?
So I think when it comes to monitoring and controlling, it's actually quite significant because controlling kind of gives that sense of making adjustments to achieve your expected outcomes. And yeah, and monitoring is basically just making sure that you're keeping within the parameters of your, expectations and whatnot.
Yes. Okay. No, I think that's well answered. It's a very important phase, that one. There's no way you can just skip it. So with that, I think we have answered the second part already, which was asking if the project manager has made the right decision skipping that stage. And the other question now, if you were the project manager in this case, how will you address that issue?
I would actually like to add on to question B.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, obviously I said no. And I just also mentioned that the monitoring and controlling is necessary because there might be scope creep, and that in noting any changes in the project management plan may help to prevent any future project scope creep, which will just be beneficial.
Yes. That's good.
Let's see.
Okay, let's see. You?
Okay.
Okay.
Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. So what I said was, okay, so this statement obviously said that